And he said, I asked him, is there an alternate way to handle this? Forget about it. Forget about it, don't worry about it.
Let's stop for a second.
Okay, back to Umberto.
Great.
Umberto said, I asked Umberto, I suggested an alternate handling, and of course you can't really do that, really. But I did it anyway. I said, isn't there any possibility, I said, isn't there any possibility of me being in another location where I can still do the work that I'm supposed to do in this current lifetime? I said, Frank got me a license. Can't he get me a passport so I can get away and just be somewhere either at St. Hill or at Knapp or someplace, or Anzo? You know, that's the Australia-New Zealand org. That's also a St. Hill org, you know. And he said, it's not the body that we're concerned about. It's not even Steve Fishman we're concerned about. It's the Thetan running Steve Fishman that's causing a risk to the church. In other words, I realized I really got the viewpoint at that point that, you know, I was the one they were wanting to do the Thetan. But I said, but still, if I'm going to be coming back, you know, as Mark said, in the Between Lives area, it's going to be me, the Thetan. Yeah, but he said that's precisely the handling. Because from day one of a successive lifetime, you're going to be in the hands of Sea Org qualified personnel, which will be your parents. You're going to have Sea Org parents. And you will be guaranteed your bridge, you know. But I still had a problem confronting. I had a problem confronting because I had conflicting data about doing the time shift. And I didn't know. I said, give me the data of how you can verify the fact that I would go through the Between Lives area safely, and I'll come down today and I'll do it.
Do what?
I'll take the lethal injection. Just give me that data. And he says, but you can't get the data because you haven't gone up the bridge far enough. I said, but it's a catch-22. You're asking me to rely on data that I don't have to do a thing which could, to my mind, be, he says, you're not confronting. It's a lack of confront. He says, drill it. You know, drill it. And there's nothing to drill because I still need the data. If they could, right now, if they could provide me data that, why, where?
Okay, we're on.
Go ahead, where were we now?
You were talking about having conflicting data, and you were in the middle of the sentence, a sentence that began with, if right now I believed or I had data.
If right now if I could see the data which could show me how they could guarantee my safe passage through the Between Lives area, I would definitely go do it.
Do
right
what?
now. I mean, I would go down there and take the lethal injection.
Have they, other than that conversation you've talked about with Mark Witt, have there been any other conversations where other people at
Leona Grimm.
have asked you about taking lethal
Well,
injections?
she told me when the medicine came.
What medicine?
The cyanide. And she told me when it arrived, and I should come down and pick it up.
Who else? Have anybody else?
Linda Miller. And then Ray Jordan called back again. And when Charlie Fox called the other day, he didn't talk about that. He just talked about...
What was it you were told to do that involved writing a note, a suicide note, and so on? Weren't you told where to go and what to do?
To the Coconut Grove Hotel. To the Coconut Grove Hotel and check in and write a note and explain to them in the note that it's hard to think that they would. I mean, they loved me. I was the public person of the week on 30 November '86 and 6 December '86.
What's it hard? What's hard?
It's hard to think that just because of this business with the with the arrest, they would all want me to drop the mock-up and go. You know, when I was the very hope of the entire organization. I was the person that was going to clear the planet. That's why I said, the hell with everything. I'm going to write the Holy Book of Life, and they're going to have the data, and I'm going to clear the planet anyway. Because I know that's what Ron wants me to do.
Okay, but you're saying that they talked to you about going to the Coconut Grove Hotel. What were you supposed to do there?
I was supposed to take the lethal injection.
And write a note?
Write a suicide note.
And what was supposed to be in the note?
Well, it was supposed to be to the effect that blaming certain people.
Who?
Well, you,
Yeah.
for example.
Blaming your attorney, who else?
It was like an admission of a lot of different things. That I was responsible for the for what happened, and that I couldn't live with myself for having put the church at risk, you know, and that I was the one that was at fault and blaming everybody else, you know.
Okay. Now, when did that occur? When was that suggestion made to go to the Coconut Grove Hotel?
About 10 days before the original date of the, around the 9th of September, I think it was.
And what
because it was about 10 days before they wanted me to plead guilty.
Who wanted you to plead guilty?
Well, when they called me up with that situation with the invisible word. You know, Dr. Geertz explained that to you.
Well, what was that all about?
Well, I didn't, it was...
Tell us what happened.
Yeah, what do you remember?
Well, what I remember about it is that there was a time lapse. And it was through hypnosis with Dr. Geertz that I was able to recall what happened. The fact that they told me that I was to plead guilty and that the invisible word was not. That I wasn't supposed to say the invisible word. That I was supposed to plead guilty, and I was to say guilty, Your Honor, when the judge asked me how do I plead to the counts in the indictment.
Now, who asked you to do this? Or who told you to do this?
I got a call from Denise Muntz from Flag. Her last name is not Muntz anymore. She got married recently, like 6 months ago.
And this was around the time of when?
Just before the indictment.
And what did she say?
She induced she induced reverie somehow. I forget the exact wording on it, but she wanted me to plead guilty. She said that, well, she said, no, you're going to plead guilty because not is the invisible word. The invisible word.
And the invisible word meant that you couldn't say it?
Right.
And how much of this did you remember before you had the session with Dr. Geertz?
Nothing. But I remembered it after.
Well, how did you know to look for it in the session with...
He asked about contacts under hypnosis.
He's asked you consistently since then about the contacts?
About contacts. And there was like a time that I was supposed to... that I was out there walking in the ocean at night at 1 in the morning. And I don't remember that, but my bathing suit was wet because it was wet. I was supposed to walk to St. Hill.
This was based on a call you received from them?
At around 12:37 in the evening.
How do you know 12:37?
Well, through our session with Dr. Geertz, the time I had looked at the clock before the phone rang. It was after Dusty called, and the phone rang, and it was 12:37.
What about, you mentioned something to me at one point about an unusual blowout on one of the tires on your car?
It was on the left rear tire. I was driving home. I was driving home from Dusty's house, and it was late at night, around 1 in the morning, and I didn't think anything of it because the tire blew out. I never had a blowout before, but the policeman who stopped on me on 95 when I was in trouble, he gave me a ride to the phone. He said to me, "This is the most unusual blowout I've ever seen because you have